In this session, we're going to be investigating the food different animals eat and trying to understand the scientific vocabulary that we can use to describe this. Animals need to eat to get their nutrition, just like humans do. However, animals don't have supermarkets to buy their foods, so they have to find it themselves. We're going to look at a few animals on the next few pages, and I want you to be thinking, what kind of food do you think each of these animals eats, and where do you think they get the food from? Let's begin with lions. What sort of food do you think lions eat, and how do you think they get that food? Pause the video for a few moments and just think about that before you come back and join me. Exactly right, lions eat meat, and they get that meat by hunting live animals, killing them and feasting on the prey. This means that lions are a type of animal called a carnivore. Our next animal is a squirrel. Now once again, what type of food do you think a squirrel has, and where do you think they get the food from? Pause the video and think about that for a few moments before coming back to join me with the answer. The main diet for a squirrel is nuts, berries and fruit, all those different foods that we imagine squirrels scavenging around in woodland for. But did you know squirrels will also eat eggs, small insects, small mammals and even small snakes? This means that because squirrels eat vegetables and meat, they are something called an omnivore, which means they will like both of them in their diet. What about penguins? What foods do you think a penguin eats, and how do you think they manage to get that food? I'll pause the video once again and have a little think about that before coming to join me. As you'd imagine, a penguin's diet consists of seafood. This means that they're carnivores and they only eat meat. So when we're thinking about things like krill, tiny crustaceans, squid and fish, they all fall under the meat category. Some species of penguin can eat so much seafood that they actually damage the area's food supply by eating so much. Here's a giraffe. What food do you think a giraffe would eat, and how do you think it finds that food? Pause the video and then we'll join back to see what your thoughts are. Giraffes are herbivores and their diet consists of mostly leaves. When we think of a giraffe, we can picture their long, tall necks reaching up to get the leaves at the top of a tree. They enjoy the leaves of a tree called the acacia tree, and they also eat grasses, fruit and vegetables. What about seagull? We see them flying around all the time. But what type of food do you think a seagull eats, and how do you think they find that food? Pause the video for a moment and then come and join me when you've given that question some thought. Now, most gulls are ground nesting carnivores. They take live food or they scavenge opportunistically, so they hunt around for things that they can grab. This live food could include crabs and small fish. However, if you think about seagulls that we see around the coastal area today, they will also swoop down and take food from other people. They'll be scavenging chips and things like that. So although we think of seagulls as being carnivores, some people might start thinking that they've evolved or adapted to the environment that they're living in to turn them into omnivores, where they'll basically eat whatever food they can see that's lying around. So from those 5 animals, you can see that animals all have different diets depending on where they live and what kind of animals they are. So when we look at a lion, they live in the savannas where they can hunt for other animals. When we look at squirrels, they're finding the food in their environment, so that idea of a woodland. The same with penguins, giraffes and seagulls, especially the way that a seagull is adapted and changed their diet, because now of course they've got all those people moving around the seaside towns and they're swooping down and stealing the food that humans eat. Some animals, like these ones you can see on the screen, are carnivores, and this means that they eat meat. Now carnivores are predators, which means they hunt and kill other animals for their food. So these will be ones where, if we imagine something called a food chain, these are the ones towards the top of that food chain. So they will be eating other things rather than being eaten by things necessarily. Other animals do not eat meat at all, and these are called herbivores. Now, herbivores are often the prey of the other animals, which means they are eaten by predators. Now, herbivores eat fruits, vegetables, seeds, and other plants. So those things that grow around in the habitat they're living. So, for example, if we think about a giraffe, they're going to be eating the leaves off trees in that local environment, as opposed to a rabbit who'd be eating the leaves off things in their local environment. Some animals eat both meat and plants, and these animals are called omnivores. Omnivores are usually predators who kill other animals and insects for food, as well as eating plants that are around. And if we look at some of these animals, these are examples of an omnivore. So we think, for example, a monkey. Well, we picture monkeys eating bananas and things like that, but they'll also eat animals that are smaller than them. If we think about a chicken, we've got the idea that they will eat grain and corn, but they'll also eat the insects that are around. So they'll be preying on those things that are smaller than them. So in this session, we've found out the different diets that some animals have. And we brought up these key terms of carnivore, herbivore, and omnivore. And what you're now going to do for your independent activity is you're going to apply this understanding and try and find out about some different animals. For activity 1, I've given you a list of different animals, and we've got to find out where this animal lives, so where you'll mainly find them. Then you're going to be thinking about whether it's a herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore, and then you're going to prove the answer by describing what those animals eat. So maybe the main food sort or something that really stands out in your mind. So on this activity, you're going to be finding out where a lion lives, so which part of the world, whether it's a country or continent, doesn't really matter. Whether that lion is a herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore, and then telling me an example of what it eats. Now, some of these animals you might not be certain about, so think about how you can find out this information. Your second activity is to write me a little report on an animal of your choice. So maybe this is going to be one of the animals that you find most fascinating, or maybe it's your favourite animal, maybe it's your pet. And I want you to think about how you can describe this animal in your report. So you're going to list the name of the animal. You're going to tell me, where does this animal live? And what I want you to think about is, if it is a pet, where would it originate from? Where does it come from? And what kind of food would this animal eat in the wild as well as at home? And then thinking about, how does this animal get its food? Well, when it's at home, how does it get the food? But if it was out in the wild, how would it get its food? Remember, most pets have been wild animals at some point. So we'll be able to link it back to where they live in the wild, in the normal world. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work.